Two. Hello, all friends. Southern Kansas Daily News. We are here with a Q&A from our good friend Joey Sandlin, partner in business, been with us for a long, long time, and he is the voice of authority in local real estate. And we've got some questions for him. Good morning, Joey.
Good morning. Good morning, Mark. How are you doing this morning?
Doing very good. Doing very good.
Staying
It's
warm.
cold outside, but it's warm on the inside.
Yeah, I heard that. Today's a good day to stay close to the fire.
That's right. That's right. And we're going to go through some questions about the real estate market and what
Okay.
is trending and how it's going now. And if you have questions for Joey, just put them in the comments and we'll go through those. So first off, let's do the first question for Joey. And that is, what do I need to do to get my home ready? So take it away.
Okay. Well, a lot of people don't even think about this, but you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So it's really important that you make your home presentable for the sale, because the first impression will determine whether or not that buyer is going to be interested in your home. And a whole lot of buyers buy emotionally. They buy out of triggers, something that makes them feel good, or something that reminds them of their childhood or something. And just overall, we wouldn't dare try to sell a car to get any value out of it, especially a nicer newer car. We wouldn't dare sell a car without washing it. Well, homes are the same way. And some of the places that we need to start is making sure that we neutralize the home, taking down, you can see behind me here in my office, I've got pictures of my family and babies back here, whatever. This office is very personalized. I'm not trying to sell it. However, if I was trying to sell this office, I would go through and take down the Remax and take down the family pictures, and I would pick neutral colors. Real strong, bold colors are usually not, they may be your personality and it may be your taste, and you may think that it's the greatest decorating in the world, but if it's really bold and strong colors, maybe the next buyer will have a hard time seeing themselves in that house. Whereas if you would make it neutral colors, like the gray we've got here behind us, gray seems to be a really, really hot color right now. Neutral color grays and browns, and make it so that it could be a black or a blank canvas for the buyer to see how they would fit in that home. And of course, you also want to look at landscaping. This time of year is kind of tough for landscaping, but we're coming up on spring. So if you're getting ready to put your home on the market for the spring, you want to make sure that you clean out your landscaping and rake your yard and get it clean, and plant flowers that will bloom in the season that you're in as quickly as possible. And just overall clean and make sure that it's ready that way, and make the home, make sure all the bedrooms pick up all the clothes and make the beds. And I know these are just common things, but the more model-like you can make the home, the better it's going to be in presenting itself. And when you show it, you make that first impression that's going to determine how that person sees that. And that first impression is so important. It is determined whether they're going to put it on the list, because typically buyers will make a list. They'll have the top 3, and you want to make that list, get that second cut for them to come back and look a second time.
I'm surprised about how many pictures I've seen, through Zillow or whatever, and the photos of the houses literally have dirty clothes and random things on the counter. It's
yeah, that was one I did mention. Declutter the counters. Absolutely.
Declutter. All right. Thank you. Let's move to the next one. How do we arrive at the suggested list price? I mean, the seller has an idea, the listing agent has an idea. How do you work with your seller and come up with what is going to be the suggested listing price?
Sure. Well, one of the things that you want to understand is that all real estate markets are local. And what that means is that a house, a a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch is not the same price here in Portsmouth as say it would be in Cincinnati or Ashland or so forth. All real estate is local. And so you have to determine that list price based on your local market. And your local market is determined, those prices come to bear based on what has been selling in the neighborhood. And so you look for comps, just like you do for an appraisal. You look for 2 to 3 comps of local sales and that has sold recently and what they brought. And that should determine or give you a pretty good idea of what your market value is for your home. And so a good realtor will pull local comps, compare, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, try to get as close a comparison as you can to comps that look like yours or the home that you're about to list. And then you will, based on the values, the size of the lots and so forth, you make adjustments to it and you come up with a list price. Now, sometimes you're able to fall in that market number, and that's something that's doable by the seller, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes maybe they are expecting more, or sometimes a lot of sellers have emotional attachment to a home, and they also think that maybe they've lived there 30 years or so, and they bought a new pool, and they bought they put a new air conditioning in back 15 years ago, and they put they think they can get all that money, what they paid for it plus all that money back out of it. That's not always the case, because somehow some people think that every penny that they put into a home, they will automatically get it back when they sell it. And that's not the case, because the market will only bear what the market value is, regardless of how much money you have put into the home. And so around here, it's really easy to improve your home to where, you've made it an amazing place to live, and it's super nice, and you've got all the things that you like about it, but you're being able to recoup all the money that you put into all the different particulars of decorating, or like I said, pools, or whatever, the television, theater rooms, things like this. It's really easy to overprice your market.
That brings up an interesting question that wasn't on the list. You brought it up with sentimental value versus practical resale. If somebody was going to make one improvement to their home that has the best return on investment, what would that be?
It's always always kitchens and baths. It's always, they look at the kitchen, they look at the bathrooms, because those are big selling points for homes. So if you're going to invest in an upgrade in your home, and it's not coincidence either, these are the 2 most expensive places that you will spend more money upgrading these areas of your home per square foot than any other area of your home. And so, but kitchens and baths will get you more attention, or will move emotionally the buyer. If a buyer goes in and it's all updated kitchen, or it's got new tile bathroom, or a new glass shower, and all new fixtures and so forth, it really goes a long way in making that home more desirable. Especially seems like buyers that are our age and down, it just seems like they really want that updated bathroom. Or a lot of homes here in Portsmouth have 1950s bathrooms, and you go in and it's pink and black, and looks like poodle skirts, and and those are
clawfoot bathtub. That's you got to keep the clawfoot bathtub, right?
Well, unless it's pink. I've seen some, I've seen some bathrooms that were pink and black, and then aqua color fixtures. When I say fixture, I mean the commode and the sink was aqua color.
Oh man, I remember the avocado. Remember the avocado?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the 70s avocado. Yeah.
Oh man. All right, help us out with this one. What is the difference between a listing agent and a buyer's agent? There's two different types of agents that a person can have. Help us understand that definition.
Okay. Well, first of all, the state of Ohio requires that every real estate agent disclose in writing what their office or their brokerage represents, or what type of representation they do in their brokerage. And in every deal, you have a buyer side and you have a seller side, or the listing side. And a real estate agent, when they come out to you, if they're a listing agent and they list your home, then that means they're representing you, the seller. Now, every buyer has a right to go get another agent, or even another agency, another brokerage company, to get a buyer's agent to represent them. And that way they know that they have an agent that's representing them specifically, because the listing agent is representing the seller and the buyer's agent's representing the buyer. Now, we do have here in the state of Ohio, and the state of Ohio allows us here as brokerages, and we offer here to do what's considered a dual agency. And a dual agency is where the agent has the ability to become an arbitrator, if you will, between the two, and he is just neutral, and he keeps things that are confidential with the buyer, and things that are confidential with the listing, with the seller, and so it's kind of a tightrope, but it can be done. You just basically play it down the middle. You don't reveal. In other words, you wouldn't reveal what a seller said he would or wouldn't take. You wouldn't reveal what a buyer said they would or wouldn't give. You just play it down the middle, and you have to say, when the buyer says, "Well, do you think they'd take this?" And you say, I typically say, "Well, you just have to write your offer up and see what they accept."
And then you present to the seller.
Yeah, to present to the seller. Yeah.
Yeah. This is probably going to be one of my favorite questions. Here we go. What is a FSBO? FSBO. And is this a good strategy to sell your home?
Okay, a FSBO stands for sale by owners. And of course, as a real estate agent, I'm not going to recommend it as a good strategy. Now, it has worked for some people, and some people have done well with it. But for every person that has done well with it, there are 3 or 4 that it's a nightmare, because there's a lot of things that are involved in selling your home that you need a good agent to help you with. There's any number of reasons in which, believe it or not, the public out here will expect a FSBO to be much cheaper than if it's listed with an agent. Many times they automatically think that the seller is a distressed seller simply because they're selling it on their own. And so, they will automatically think that they're going to get a lower price because it's being represented by the home seller themselves. There's also a lot of things that are involved with selling a home. For example, the state of Ohio requires that all sellers provide what is called a residential property disclosure form if it's a home or residence. And that residential property disclosure form has a list of questions on it that the home seller is supposed to put on there that covers everything from foundation. Is there any foundation issues happened in the last 5 years? Is the roof leaked in the last 5 years? All kinds of questions about the condition of the home. That's a state required form of all property that's sold. And so a lot of sellers don't know, the FSBOs don't know that they're required to have that residential property disclosure form. But what happens is, if they do sell a home for sale by owner or FSBO, and then they get into some type of minor litigation, say small claims court or something over a leaky roof or something, the very first thing the judge is going to ask for is that residential property disclosure form. And if you sold the home by yourself and didn't fill one of those out, then you're really unprotected. Whereas if the information that there is in dispute was put on the residential property disclosure form, then the very first thing the judge is going to look at and say, well, right here, the seller disclosed it right here, and you signed it, so you really can't come back on them or whatever. It's a way of protecting the seller. It really protects the seller and the buyer, because it discloses everything up front. In real estate, I always teach my agents and always teach agents When in doubt, disclose everything, disclose every material fact you know about the property. That way, because it's better to disclose. And then once it's disclosed and you have proof that you've disclosed it, then you're protected from somebody coming back and crying foul after the fact.
That's a great answer. Good information right there. Let's go to the next one. If we you, how are you going to market my home? Are you just going to put a sign in the yard and one picture on Zillow and that's it?
Oh no. We market your home in a multiplicity of ways. First of all, you want to make sure that your realtor is a member of the National Association of Realtors and the Ohio Association of Realtors and the local board. Here locally, we have the Greater Portsmouth Area Board of Realtors. I'm also a member of the Cincinnati Area Board of Realtors. And so I belong to all those associations, and I pay all those dues, and I pay for those MLS fees so that I can put your home. So whenever I list your home, it's going to be listed in the multiple listing services, not only of here locally in Soda County, but also the Cincinnati area market. So basically, it's going to get coverage from Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati, all the way down to almost to Ashland or Ironton. And then also I'm licensed in the state of Kentucky as well, so I can draw buyers from over there as well. And then in addition, of course, every realtor that, most of the realtors in our area are members of the multiple listing service, and we have a lot of good agents here in the area. But what makes us different, or I'll stand out and say what makes us different, is we have the network power of RE/MAX. For example, RE/MAX has the most productive sales force in the United States when it comes to selling residential homes. The poster here behind me says no one sells more real estate than RE/MAX, and that's true. And so it goes into the RE/MAX network, as well as we have a complete studio. I have a design studio in which once I load the home up in the multiple listing service, I have at my fingertips in a matter of 15, 20 minutes. Every home has its own website. Every home, I have postcards that are pre-designed with the pictures that I take. On average, I'll take 50 pictures per home. Every home has its own website. Every home has a virtual tour, which it's a software that stitches the pictures together to make it like a virtual tour. In addition to that, I will personally go out, and you've seen, I put some of them here on the Soda County Daily News. I will personally go out and do a video walkthrough as well.
Yeah,
and
really powerful.
And I use Soda County Daily News. You have a very large following here in the area, and we put them on Soda County Daily News. We very, very aggressively. I typically can show you within 48 to 72 hours that I put your home in front of 10,000 viewers or 10,000 eyes. And so we very aggressively go after marketing when we list a home. It's not just sticking a sign in the yard and waiting on the phone to ring.
And you'll be surprised at how many, just industry wide, we'll put it on the MLS and hope for a bite, and we'll stick a sign in your yard. So you'd be surprised. So it's really an important question when looking at listing your home with an agent. So that's a great segue into the next question, and that is, what's the average number of days on the market right now? I know that changes. Where are we at right now in the market?
It's come down here locally. We've always been north. When I say always, in the last 2-3 years, we've been a good bit north of 100 days, but it's come down now to where the average is around right around 90 to 100 days, which still seems high, but not for our area. And listings that are, and I say listings that are, every listing's not the same. Listings that are a really good home, it's a nice home, it's it's priced right, it's in the price range, it's a desirable home. They only last a few days right now. I listed one, the last listing I took was in Lucasville, and it sold in 4 days. And so it went under contract in 4 days. And so homes that are a good listing are going very, very quickly right now because there's way more buyers. There's a lot of people moving into our area, believe it or not. I was having a conversation with one of our commissioners yesterday, and they was talking about the uptake that they see, I guess because of the way that COVID has changed things. People are working from their home or so forth. My daughter lived in Dallas, Texas, and she has moved back simply because she can work from her home. And so she moved back home. The cost of living here is so much more reasonable than Dallas, Texas. So, she's moved home, and her husband is able to do his engineering work. He's an engineer for, excuse me, one of the largest television networks in the world. And he does it from the computer and at home. So it's the market's really good right now. We have a lot more buyers than we do sellers. We're needing listings. My listing average is way down simply because we're selling everything we can get a hold of. They're going fairly quickly. And so
that's a good problem to have.
That is a good problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless. I tell people all the time, I said, a realtor with no listings is kind of like a car salesman with an empty car lot. Right. It's hard to have any business if you don't have a car to sell.
So I appreciate your time here today. I'm going to wind down with some questions that are on the peripheral of real estate business, because as a listing agent, you've got the primary communication with the seller. And so they're going to ask you questions. It's not technically your specific job, but you have to have working knowledge of what's going on. So you have relationships with the mortgage folks, the home inspections, sure, the appraisals. And so I'm going to ask you a couple of those questions. Right now, let's jump over to your opinion in the market today. What's the best situation? Are we looking at a fixed rate or the adjustable rate?
Right now, I think the fixed rate is the only way to go. And the reason I say that is because it's so low. Typically, you would look at an ARM if we was in a market where the interest rates were super high and you was wanting to write it in an ARM at a lower rate, hoping that the interest rates might come back down during the time frame of your ARM, adjustable rate mortgage. But right now, the fixed rates are I've had them come across my desk in the last month at 2.25%, all the way up to 2.79%. And so those are amazing rates. That's the cheapest thing or closest thing to free money I've seen in my lifetime. That's the cheapest mortgage rates I've ever seen. And so to me, it doesn't make any sense to even consider an ARM right now. If you can lock in a 30-year fix at 2.79, that's a no-brainer.
What about this next one? Home inspection. Is it required? And if so, who pays for it?
A home inspection is not required. We always recommend, when we're representing a buyer in any way, whether we're a dual agency or specifically representing the buyer by themselves, we always recommend that buyers get a home inspection. Typically, a home inspection ranges in price based on the size of the home. The larger the home, the higher the price. And they're $300 to $500, and I say that loosely. What I do is I always recommend I've got a list of reputable home inspection companies, and I recommend them to the buyer. And typically, it is the buyer's cost to pay for his own home inspection, and that's a report that he gets that belongs to him. And what that home inspection will do is give you a very detailed schematic or report, if you will, of everything that's, the light socket in the utility room on the bottom doesn't work, that kind of thing. It gives you a very detailed report of any particular problems, any cracks settling in the foundation, any roof issues, any shingle issues, window issues, anything. And so it's not required. And a buyer can say, I don't want to spend the money. I don't want it. But I always recommend as a realtor
Absolutely.
that they get a home inspection.
Well, and that's a good thing that it's the buyer's responsibility because the home inspector is not representing the seller or the buyer. They're
Yeah,
not. They're a neutral party, and they're giving an honest evaluation of the home and the safety of the home. If the seller was paying for the home inspection, then it could be perceived that it could be dolled up and made to be better
right.
than it is, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and they're regulated. Their industry is regulated just like our real estate agency is regulated by the state, and they're required. And I can tell you the ones we have in our area are very reputable and do an amazing job. And they're gonna tell you exactly what's going on in that home, and and so you're going to get a non-biased, just as a matter of fact, report of,
Right.
and sometimes, especially maybe buyers that are maybe buying a home for the first time, those of us that have bought and sold homes a lot, you understand that when you're buying a 30-plus-year-old home, it's an entity that's 30 years old. And so it's going to have minor issues. There's going to be, little things, and that inspection report is going to list everything. And so it can be a little daunting if you've never looked at a home inspection report. It can scare you into thinking like, oh my gosh, this house has got all kinds of problems. Well, no, it's probably just typical of a 30-year-old home. And so that's where the real estate agent comes in to be able to help them decipher, if you will, what are, foundational issues. Those are serious issues. You know what I'm saying? If the mechanicals are shot, furs don't work, of course, those are serious issues. But the piece of siding loose, the vinyl siding on the back corner, that is an issue, but it's not a foundational issue. So just being able to help them decipher the report, to
Right.
to see what's important, what's not.
All right. Last question. I really appreciate your time, and I think the folks are really going to get a benefit from this. Let's talk about appraisals. Um, how long do they take, and do they just pull comparison? Do they do a drive by? Do they do a full inspection? What's the deal with appraisals?
Well, first of all, there's several different types of appraisals. Probably the most comprehensive and the most exhaustive appraisal would be an FHA or a BA or USDA appraisal. Those appraisers have extensive list forms in which they have to go very detailed over the property. For example, they test the pressure, the water pressure, in the house to make sure that the water pressure is right. And they check the voltage and the electric, all these things. And so they're very, very detailed appraisals. And then the next in comprehensive or detailed appraisal would be a conventional loan in which a bank is sending an appraiser out. And they can get by with less detailed, being conventional, in which they may just take interior and exterior pictures and so forth. Then it goes all the way down to an appraiser who is just wanting to do for a bank. The bank has taken an asset into their portfolio, and they want an appraiser to go out and give them a condition property report or whatever, and that could be something as little as a drive-by. And so really depends on what appraisal is being ordered, what it's being appraised for.
Now, I can tell you that this happens in the refinance world, in the refi world. They'll do a drive by. I had a case, probably 2004, 2005, and the mortgage the mortgage broker said we're going to do a drive by to make sure there's actually a roof on the house, and that's pretty common in the refinance world. But in the new purchases, I appreciate you telling us that depending on the type of mortgage that you're going for, dictates the terms of what's required
Yeah.
from that appraisal. So
Yeah.
fantastic. Here's the last question, and it's a doozy. It's a fun one. Let's talk about who's responsible to make sure that additions and remodels are permitted and approved, and that comes down to zoning and some stuff like that. So give us your thoughts on that.
Well, our area, being the rural area that it is very relaxed on permits and things of that nature, and so that's all the more reason I think that a home inspection report is vital to make sure that it's done right. Of course, also you want to make sure that if it is, just off the top of my head, if you're buying something, building maybe that has commercial space in the bottom and rentals over top, which we have quite a few of them here in Portsmouth. You want to make sure that has been permitted by the zoning, or that you're capable of doing that. Or if it's a multi-dwelling where they've taken one of the larger homes and now turned it into where there's two apartments in the same home or whatever. And typically, as a buyer, the state of Ohio is a caveat emptor state, which means buyer beware. Typically, the buyer wants to do his due diligence and making sure that anything that he's buying is according to the zoning and so forth. You can't assume that just because it's the way it is that it's right or sitting there legal according to the zoning. It definitely is worth the trip down to the courthouse and find out if it's zoned correctly for what it is, since it's changed, especially if you know that it's been recently changed.
Right.
And so because sometimes people are well-meaning and they don't realize that they've done something that they're
it's not that they're necessarily nefarious, but sometimes
it's done ignorantly. It's done. It wasn't intentional. It was just not followed up on. And then two, we also have some areas here in Portsmouth that are historically, down along 2nd Street, and you have the historic role that plays in that as well. And so you also want to consider those things and those issues. And typically, if you do any remodel or repairs of a home that's in a historic district, your cost and expenses to do that is going to be considerably higher, simply because it's in a historical area and you'll have to build it back according to the stipulations of that. So you got to watch that as well. But typically all of that is the buyer's. The seller may be sitting there operating it. Everything's fine. Nobody's bothering them, and they may be selling it as whatever. And you hope, and you pray that what they're doing is, right. But as a buyer, you need to do your due diligence, and that's where a good real estate agent comes in too. I have a friend who told me a horror story that they just bought a home in outside of Panama City, Florida, and she was buying it with the thoughts of her going down a couple weeks a year or whatever, and enjoying it as a vacation home, and then renting it out the rest of the time. And then after she had bought the home, it was brought to her attention that the home was in a section where they don't allow it to be rented out, and so the income that she was planning on making off of that home to help pay for that home was no longer available to her, because she bought a home that was in a situation where the local zoning didn't allow her to rent it as a vacation home. So
and the same goes with condo investments in, say, Myrtle Beach. You've got to check with that HOA and to make sure that the rentals are available. So that's a fantastic point. Yes.
Yeah, unless you have direct misrepresentation or fraud from a seller, if the seller is not directly lying to you, it's up to the buyer to find out do his due diligence to make sure that it's taken care of. You know, you got to be a smart investor. Invest. You're investing. A
Exactly.
home is an investment. You know,
It
and
is.
so
It is.
all the more reason why you need a good real estate agent.
That's right. And listen, we appreciate your business partnership for years now.
Yeah, yeah.
And I tell you what, there's you tell us the story. I know you told it to me, but tell us the story where you drove through McDonald's and the lady recognized you. Tell us that story.
Yeah, yeah. We was on our way to church on a Sunday morning, actually, and I pulled through the drive-through, and the young lady that was waiting on us at the drive-through, she pointed at me. She said, "You're the real estate guy. You're the real estate guy. I see you on Facebook all the time. I see you on the Soda County News all the time. You're the real estate guy." And we just got a big laugh out of that in the car. And I just looked over at my wife, Becky, and said, "I guess I'm the real estate guy."
You're the real, yeah, you're the real estate guy. Well,
Yeah.
we appreciate you, Joe. We appreciate your partnership. We appreciate you taking the time to help the viewers understand more about the process because this is the time of year. Folks
Absolutely.
are, the spring and people like to move, but now's a time where the sellers are looking for agents and the buyers are getting ready and they know it takes, a little bit of time. So January, February is a time for two things: real estate deals and planning weddings. And
Planning
so,
wedding.
yeah,
Valentine's Day.
that's exactly right. So we appreciate you. Is there anything that we did not cover that you want to toss in as a plug?
No, other than to say that if you are thinking about selling, we talked about the market as far as the interest rates being low. Low. Now's an incredible time to sell because there's way more buyers out there right now than there are sellers, and the property values are up from year over year. From this time last year, we're up about 22%. And so, an $80,000 home last year, all things considered the same, an $80,000 home last year is now selling, for 110. So and the market is really, really strong. So if you're thinking about buying, more than likely, if you've got a lot of ifs here, but if you've got a decent home to market, you're going to be able to get top dollar as far as what the market will bear right now. So, and we don't know how much longer these interest rates are going to last. Of course, inflationary issues and all kinds of issues can change those things, and it's constantly a fluid thing. But right now, as of right now, they're 2.79 or so. So, but that's a bump up. We did see it go all the way down to 2.25. So right around the election. So it
Is it's a great time to list. It's what would you call it? A buyer's market
yeah,
or a
yeah.
seller's market?
Well, it's a seller's market in the sense that sellers can demand top dollar. I mean, when I say top dollar, you can't get crazy prices, but I mean, your house will sell at the top of the market.
So we're in a situation where the inventory is low, so it's a great time to list. Interest rates are working in the buyer's favor.
And buyer, yeah, yeah,
So this is a great time. This is the
yeah.
time.
Well, the first CARES Act give a great deal of money to the banks on the backside. They give money to us to help us through this pandemic, but they also give a lot of money to the banks, and the banks therefore have made the interest rates low, and they have a lot of money to lend, and so it's a great time to apply and get a loan at a very, very good interest rate. I mean, typically, at 2.25%, you're talking. Now, this is not. This is just principal and interest. This is not with taxes and insurance. But you're talking $100,000 is around $400 a month. I mean, it's just really, really low.
That's a great point you brought up. Well, people tell us the difference between interest rate and APR.
Okay. Well, the interest rate is the APR is the annual percentage rate. The interest rate is the overall total interest given on a home. Your APR is your annual interest rate that you pay over the years. If it's a 30-year fix, if it's 2.79, that's the annual percentage rate for the interest for the home. And then your total interest rate, or total, would be like the total expenses. And we talked about that a minute ago too, how that one of the ways that that the market has changed is closing costs have increased somewhat because of the low interest rates. And that's in your total interest, that would be your closing costs would be considered part of that fee, if you will, or whatever, the total purchase. You know, when you get a HUD-1, you which is a financial statement which lays out what you're paying, every penny you're paying for that home. All your fees plus your interest, your APR is added up to make that. And that's your true interest rate. That's your true interest fee, if you will.
Right. The infamous black box disclosure.
Yeah, that kind of makes your heart, skip a beat when you see that large number up there at the end of 30 years, what you actually pay for the home. But right now, the APRs are extremely low, and so the closing cost is a little higher because of the low APRs. But still, it's a great time to buy a home. If you've ever thought of home ownership, I guarantee you can get in a home. If you're able to get a loan, you can get into a home much cheaper than you can rent right now.
I agree. Fantastic. Well, listen, Joey, we appreciate you taking the time with us, with the viewers. We appreciate your friendship, appreciate your partnership.
Yes.
And we're going to close out the video, but I'm going to ask you to stay on with me just a minute, if you would, for a chat after we close this out.
Okay.
But this has been Joey Sandlin from Remax Realty in Portsmouth, Ohio. And we want to thank him so much. And, of course, I'm the infamous Mark. So we got famous Joe. Hey, you're the real estate guy from Soda County Daily News. And we've been talking some real estate down to some real brass tacks. And we appreciate that. And you guys have a wonderful day.